Thank you so much for this opportunity to give you a quarterly update on the activities of the Easton Economic Development Corporation. I have a PowerPoint. It follows more or less the same format that we've used before. So there is some redundancy, so we'll kind of move through it rather quickly. If we can go to the next slide. I'll cover our vision and mission again, and goals, milestones, and then answer any questions that you might have. Next slide. Our executive board remains the same from the last time I presented, so we can move to the next slide. And then our board of directors also has not changed since the last time I presented.
I have a question about your board of directors.
Sure.
Who are voting members?
Everybody's a voting member except for Megan Cook and the mayor.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, next slide. Again, I'll just recap. Our vision and mission has not changed. Historic Easton, growing a diverse and healthy smart town, leading innovation where land and water meet. And then next slide. And our mission to drive economic vitality, smart redevelopment, and business formation in order to foster a healthy quality of life for all generations. And then I know that you all are well versed on our goals. I'll just kind of summarize this slide. Fostering an environment that provides, that promotes investment in Easton. Next slide. Growing Easton by establishing it as a center for innovation. And then next slide. Creating an infrastructure to enable healthy food production and a distribution network. To that end, we continue to move multiple projects and initiatives forward, and we can go to the next slide. And I will go ahead and highlight a few of our milestones. We continue to work on the food hub, as you know, and you just got an update on that, so I won't cover that. We also are continuing to form many partnerships in order to move initiatives forward. One of them that I'll highlight now is a partnership with the Eastern Shore Entrepreneurship Center. We're working closely with them and Talbot County Economic Development and others to establish an innovation ecosystem in Easton. Essentially, we have a number of small entrepreneurs and businesses that are doing tech-related kinds of businesses, and we know in order for them to be successful, we need to support their efforts, and one of the key ingredients to that is helping them meet one another and meet others that are working on similar kinds of things on the Western Shore. So some of the initiatives that we've done, in September we held our first Innovation Week, and we're now planning Innovation Week for 2015. At that time in September, the Maryland Startup Fest came, and several entrepreneurs made presentations in order to have an opportunity to possibly win funds to get their businesses started. We also partnered on 2 events with the Chesapeake Regional Tech Council, and we plan to do more in the future with them. They're a networking organization that basically works in the Chesapeake region with businesses that are tech-oriented. And then we're also continuing to work with ESAC to try to establish a co-working business in Easton. The ESAC currently has a co-working facility in Salisbury, and they very much would like to establish a co-working facility here in Easton, and so we've been looking at sites and continue to move that project forward, and I think we're starting to gain some traction there. Another project that we've been working on is one that sort of emerged actually through the Port Street initiative. As you know, we're working on redevelopment of Port Street, and I'll talk more about that later. But a project that sort of emerged from that is the potential to establish a nonprofit marine trade school in Easton. Based on our preliminary research, there's a tremendous opportunity to train young people that may be not interested in necessarily going to college but want to enter into the trades. In the mid-Atlantic region, we do not have a trade school that's teaching these kinds of skills, and we have an incredible need for our marinas to get more labor in. Currently, I think in the Delmarva area or Eastern Shore area, there are 60 open jobs just in that industry alone. And the average age of people working in those jobs currently is about 59, 60 years old. So there's quite a need to start bringing in new talent. And it would also, in addition to helping the young people that are seeking career opportunities to stay on the shore, it also would help those businesses to grow. Continuing on, we continue to work with businesses that seek to establish, a business that seeks to establish a hydroponic growing facility here in Easton. I can't really say much more because they're going through their process of evaluating the opportunity. But if this opportunity were to come to Easton, it could create as many as 300 jobs over 4 years. Actually, I think we could probably move to the next slide. And then lastly, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Port Street Initiative. As you know, we did a master planning effort. We started working with the town of Easton pretty much as soon as I came on board. Lynn Thomas, the town planner, was working very hard with a class from Salisbury U to do a master plan that would basically look at Easton Point and then also Port Street from the Parkway all the way up to Washington. In September, as you know, I think we had about 200 people come out for a planning meeting. Since then, a draft master plan has been formed. It's not really ready yet for public viewing, although it will be probably in the spring, depending on when the mayor wishes us to bring it out. In the meantime, we're forming a number of committees to help study that plan so that we can get the information that you'll need in order to make important decisions about how to go about implementing or not implementing some of those ideas. So we have formed 3 committees. One of the committees is looking at streetscape improvements along Port Street, so basically tree planting, narrowing the street, some of the ideas that came out of the master planning process. And that committee is being headed up and staffed by a staff person from the Eastern Shore Land Conservancy. We have another committee that's doing an economic analysis, so that particular committee, which is made up of folks that represent businesses here in Easton, and a few volunteers actually from outside of Easton, but largely from Easton, all volunteering their time in order to look at what the cost of implementing the plan would be. And critical to that, of course, is the cost of the infrastructure that would need to be built out on Easton Point. In order for us to give you the kind of information we need to really do the cost analysis so that we can be able to come back and tell you for this kind of density, you'll get this kind of return on your investment and taxes and so on. And so you can expect a report from us probably in the around May or June of next year. After we get that report done, I would imagine that we would undergo the public process of going through the master plan and hopefully at some point, maybe a year from now, actually taking that master plan and amending the town master plan to include those ideas. I think that's basically it. So I think the good news is that there's a number of volunteers that are coming forward that are interested in the programs and ideas that we're putting forward, and we're gaining speed and building an infrastructure for them to volunteer in. And I'd say right now, just on the Port Street Initiative alone, we have over 30 people volunteering their time. So I appreciate the time tonight to provide this information and welcome any questions.
Are you also looking at funding sources?
Absolutely, we are looking at funding sources, and some of those funding sources might be private foundations. Some of them could be public, and others could be from the property owners themselves, who will benefit from if the zoning were to change and their properties were to gain value, they would obviously benefit, and they would be expected to help pay for some of those improvements. So one of the big trends going on right now, particularly with younger people in urban areas, is that rather than getting an office for their businesses, they prefer to congregate. I think that Mike Tilke calls it sort of coffee house meets library. So it's an opportunity for people to come. Maybe they're renting a desk. There's different models for different facilities, but basically they come there and they can use the space, and then they can access services that are provided. In cities like Washington, D.C. or New York, these can be really elaborate facilities with, cafes and coffee shops and all kinds of other kinds of services that are available. Some of them even have living spaces. But what we know about sort of innovation is that if people come together and they share ideas and they bump up against one another, sort of around the water cooler, that's sort of how new ideas and collaborations begin. And so co-working is an excellent way to sort of foster that kind of interaction. And actually, the Eastern Shore Land Conservancy's building with their environmental, their new office space will be similar to that, sort of around an environmental theme here in Easton. So that's an excellent first start. And then Mike Tilkey, again, the executive director of the Eastern Shore Entrepreneurship Center, has already done one of these in Salisbury, and it's been very successful. So we feel like Easton certainly is a place where this should also succeed.
Tracy, back to the Port Street effort. I made this comment in one of the meetings, and you did have tremendous attendance especially at the firehouse at that meeting. But I don't know, maybe you have a better idea, but I don't know how well represented the property owners and residences on the east side of the parkway on Port Street. How many of those folks were there? And one of my concerns, and it's just a concern, it has no basis in anything you've said, other than I just want everybody to be aware of it. With gentrification, sometimes comes displacement, and displacement is a concern, especially in the Port Street neighborhood. I mean, that neighborhood can certainly use some improvements. There are many underway now, but I hate to see a master plan come forward that moves folks out of that neighborhood. So I guess my central point is, if they have not been involved to date, rather than wait till we get to the public portion of the master plan, it would be beneficial to the process to get those folks involved now if they have not been so far.
Great, and we will do that. And we are, I can assure you that none of the plans that I've seen in the draft are displacing anybody, including on Easton Point, with perhaps one exception. And of course, no one's getting displaced. These are concepts that a property owner can reject out of hand. So that's the good news. And then the other thing is we're working very closely with Don Bibb of the Talbot County, I'm not sure what it's called, Housing Commission. And he's doing a lot of redevelopment along there with existing housing stock. And so we're being supportive of that and look forward to working with Don to see how we can continue to build on his efforts.
Okay, thank you.
Because I know some members of the county council are very interested in what's happening down there and what kind of impact it's going to have on the county.
Right,
So
absolutely.
they have to be in that loop very early.
Absolutely. Agreed.
And moving forward, the postponement of the Eastern Shore Food Hub discussion, Tracy and the board, I would just like to commend you for postponing and backtracking and hopefully doing the good work that really needs to be done to fully engage our communities and all stakeholders, as you pointed out, in this discussion. And I look forward to seeing updates and a new business model, or certainly one that is more palatable.
Great.
Okay.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.